This is a true story. A 67-year-old woman in Minnesota walked into her doctor's office complaining of severe abdominal cramping and bloating that had persisted for 3 days. She'd recently started eating dried figs daily after reading about their health benefits for bone density. What her doctor discovered was alarming. Her potassium levels had spiked dangerously high, and she was experiencing a potentially life-threatening interaction between the figs and her blood pressure medication. This wasn't just digestive discomfort. This was her body sending distress signals that could have led to cardiac arrhythmia if left unchecked another day. Figs are incredible for people over 60. They're packed with calcium, magnesium, and fiber that can genuinely support bone health and digestion. But there are 6 critical mistakes that turn this superfood into a serious health risk for seniors, and most people are making at least 3 of them right now without realizing it. I'm going to show you all 6 mistakes in order of danger, starting with the one that sent that Minnesota woman to the emergency room and could be affecting your heart rhythm at this very moment. The biggest mistake seniors make with figs is eating them while taking certain medications without adjusting their intake. Figs are extraordinarily high in potassium, with just 3 dried figs containing about 330 milligrams. That might sound harmless, but here's what most people don't know. If you're taking ACE inhibitors for blood pressure, medications like lisinopril, enalapril, or ramipril, your kidneys are already retaining more potassium than normal. That's actually how these medications work, by affecting your kidneys' handling of electrolytes. Add multiple servings of high potassium figs to that equation, and you're creating a perfect storm for hyperkalemia, which is dangerously elevated potassium in your blood. When potassium levels climb too high, your heart's electrical system starts misfiring. You might feel palpitations, weakness, or tingling in your extremities. In severe cases, it causes cardiac arrest. The risk is even higher if you're also taking potassium-sparing diuretics like spironolactone, or if you have any degree of kidney impairment, which becomes increasingly common after 60. The solution isn't to avoid figs entirely. It's to work with your doctor to monitor your potassium levels if you want to include them regularly in your diet, and to never exceed 1 or 2 fresh figs or 3 dried figs per day if you're on these medications. Your pharmacist can provide a complete list of medications that affect potassium retention, and this conversation could quite literally save your life. But that's not the only problem with how seniors consume figs. The second dangerous mistake is eating them on an empty stomach first thing in the morning. This is incredibly common because people read that figs help with constipation and assume they should eat them before breakfast for maximum digestive benefit. Here's why that backfires for people over 60. Figs contain a significant amount of natural sugars and compounds called physin enzymes. When you eat them on an empty stomach, especially dried figs which are concentrated, your blood sugar spikes rapidly. For seniors with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, which affects nearly half of adults over 65 according to the CDC, this creates an immediate glucose surge that your aging pancreas struggles to manage efficiently. The physin enzymes can also irritate the stomach lining when there's no food buffer present, leading to gastritis symptoms or acid reflux, conditions that are already more prevalent in older adults due to decreased stomach acid production and weakened lower esophageal sphincter muscles. The research is clear on this. A study published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that consuming high glycemic foods on an empty stomach leads to greater postprandial glucose variability in older adults, which over time contributes to insulin resistance and cardiovascular complications. Instead, pair your figs with protein or healthy fats. Eat them with Greek yogurt, a handful of almonds, or after a balanced meal. This slows the sugar absorption and protects your stomach lining. It's a simple timing shift that prevents both immediate discomfort and long-term metabolic damage. Which brings us to mistake number 3, and this one affects your bones despite what you've been told. People eat figs specifically for the calcium content, and yes, dried figs do contain about 60 milligrams of calcium per 3 fig serving. But here's the catch that nobody talks about. Figs also contain high levels of oxalates, naturally occurring compounds that bind to calcium in your digestive tract and prevent its absorption. This is particularly problematic for seniors because you're already fighting an uphill battle with calcium absorption. After menopause, women lose the protective effect of estrogen on bone density, and both men and women experience decreased calcium absorption efficiency with age due to lower vitamin D production and reduced stomach acid. When you eat high oxalate foods like figs without strategic pairing, You're essentially wasting the calcium content and potentially creating calcium oxalate crystals that contribute to kidney stone formation. About 10% of people will develop a kidney stone in their lifetime, and the risk increases significantly after 60, especially if you're dehydrated or have a history of stones. The solution is to consume figs alongside calcium-rich dairy or fortified plant milks that contain vitamin D, and never eat them at the same time as your calcium supplement if you take one. Space them at least 2 to 3 hours apart. Also, stay extremely well hydrated when eating dried figs regularly. The oxalate issue is real, but it's manageable with proper food combining and hydration strategies that most people simply aren't aware of. Now, here's where it gets even more concerning. The fourth mistake is buying the wrong type of figs and exposing yourself to sulfite sensitivity reactions. Many commercially dried figs are treated with sulfur dioxide to preserve their color and extend shelf life. For the general population, this might not be an issue, but for seniors, especially those with asthma or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, sulfites can trigger severe respiratory reactions. The prevalence of sulfite sensitivity increases with age and is present in approximately 5% to 10% of adults with asthma. Symptoms range from wheezing and chest tightness to full anaphylactic reactions in rare cases. The problem is that sulfites aren't always prominently labeled, and many people don't connect their breathing difficulties or headaches to the dried fruit they ate hours earlier. Research published in the Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology documented multiple cases of sulfite-induced bronchospasm in older adults who consumed preserved dried fruits without realizing the connection. Always buy organic, unsulfured dried figs. Yes, they look browner and less appealing than the bright, preserved versions, but that natural color means you're avoiding a potential respiratory trigger. Read labels obsessively. If you have any history of asthma, sulfite sensitivity, or unexplained breathing issues, this isn't optional advice. It's a critical safety measure. The fifth mistake might surprise you because it involves something most people consider healthy. Eating figs while taking blood-thinning medications without monitoring your vitamin K intake creates a dangerous inconsistency in your anticoagulation levels. Figs contain moderate amounts of vitamin K, particularly in the skin. Vitamin K promotes blood clotting, which is exactly what medications like warfarin are trying to prevent. The issue isn't that you can't eat figs on blood thinners, it's that inconsistent intake causes your INR levels, which measure how long your blood takes to clot, to fluctuate unpredictably. One week you eat figs daily, the next week you don't, and suddenly your carefully calibrated warfarin dose is either too strong or too weak. Too strong means bleeding risk. Too weak means stroke risk. For seniors on anticoagulants, consistency is everything. If you want to include figs in your diet and you're taking warfarin or similar medications, eat the same amount at the same frequency every week. This allows your doctor to dose your medication appropriately around your stable vitamin K intake. Never suddenly add or remove figs from your routine without informing your healthcare provider and potentially adjusting your next INR check. This kind of dietary consistency prevents the medication roller coaster that leads to serious complications. And finally, the sixth mistake that's causing digestive chaos for seniors everywhere is eating too many figs too quickly when your system isn't accustomed to high-fiber foods. 3 dried figs contain approximately 5 grams of fiber. That's substantial. When older adults suddenly add this much fiber without adequate hydration or gradual introduction, the results are painful. We're talking severe bloating, gas, cramping, and even intestinal blockages in extreme cases. Your digestive system slows down with age. Peristalsis, the wave-like muscle contractions that move food through your intestines, becomes less efficient. Suddenly flooding that slower system with concentrated fiber, especially the insoluble fiber found in fig seeds and skin, causes traffic jams. The fiber sits in your colon, absorbing water and expanding, but your intestines can't move it along quickly enough. This is why some seniors experience the opposite of the intended effect and actually become more constipated after eating figs. Start with 1 fresh fig or just 2 dried figs per day, and drink at least 8 ounces of water with them and another 8 ounces within the next hour. Increase your intake gradually over 2 to 3 weeks if you want to eat more. This gives your gut bacteria time to adjust and your digestive muscles time to adapt to the increased fiber load. Patience here prevents the emergency room visit for fecal impaction, which is far more common in seniors than anyone wants to discuss. Remember that woman from Minnesota I mentioned at the beginning? After her doctor identified the potassium medication interaction and adjusted both her fig intake and monitored her levels, she was able to continue enjoying figs safely. She learned to pair them with meals, stay hydrated, and communicate with her healthcare team. That's the real message here. Figs can absolutely be part of a healthy diet after 60, but only when you're informed about the specific risks your age and medications create. These 6 mistakes aren't about fear. They're about knowledge that gives you power over your health instead of leaving it to chance. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.